While a building is certainly not a church, following the expansion and building activities over 120 years can be a good way to follow the history of Grace Point. An organizational meeting for the First Baptist Church in Newtown, now Grace Point, was held on Sunday, September 22nd, 1901, at Newtown Hall, now the Newtown Theater. The church subsequently met at various locations near downtown Newtown until a permanent building could be constructed. The so-called gas house lot on North State Street, next to Newtown Borough Hall, and now the home of Lubavitch of Bucks County, was purchased and ground was broken on September 25th, 1905. Dedication of the new building was held in May of 1906. But there were many financial difficulties in the early years. There was no pastor in 1913, 1914. The church was nearly disbanded in 1919. A home next to the church building had been purchased for a parsonage in 1912, but was sold in 1919 and then repurchased again around 1920. But all debts were cleared by 1925. The church had 20 pastors from its founding until 1962, an average tenure of about 3 years. There have been another 6 pastors since 1962, which works out to about a 10-year average tenure. Finally, some stability and growth came to the church. The original building was expanded in 1950. A Sunday school wing was added in 1961. Planning for expansion of a new property began in 1978, but then there was a change of pastor. In 1982, a new sanctuary facility opened on the site of the old parsonage. More growth followed, prompting a move to 2 Sunday morning services. But then a lack of parking became an issue with the 2 services because we just had to rely on on-street parking. After some false starts, our current property was purchased in 1992, and the permitting process with Lower Makefield Township was begun in 1994. Permitting became a long and arduous process with many starts and stops. Keith Brown and I have much personal experience with that process. But design for the new building continued. A very significant milestone was a centennial worship service on the new property in September of 2001. The year 2002 brought a significant problem with the sale of our property on State Street. We found out why that property was called the gas house lot. That property had been the site of a manufactured gas plant in the late 1800s, and PECO was now being required to do some environmental remediation. With the cooperation and consideration of all parties, shepherded by Keith, that hurdle was surmounted. Finally, on a cold and rainy New Year's Day in 2003, we held a joyous groundbreaking ceremony. But completion of permitting and beginning of construction were yet to come. But finally, construction of the new facility was completed in June 2004, and the move was made from State Street in Newtown to the new property in Lower Makefield Township, which we had named Grace Point. Eventually, Grace Point became the legal business name of First Baptist Church in Newtown. Once we had settled into Grace Point, our efforts turned to a long-held desire to plant a new church in the region. A process was begun to identify a likely location. It was finally decided to plant a new church in Lower Bucks County. Demographic information showed that there was plenty of room for another Bible preaching church in the area. In 2012, we hired an expansion campus pastor who developed and led a launch team of about 75 people for that purpose. We learned of a church in Levittown that was closing, and we were able to purchase the property from them. That church had been built on a lot donated by the original builders of Levittown, so that church came with its own bit of history. Following 3 months of renovation, Restoration Church opened in 2013. Restoration became financially independent from Grace Point in less than 3 years, and that leads us up to today.